electricity isn't a luxury. It's a necessity for our way of life, more so than ever. Everything we have depends on this. So we're going to see load increase. We're going to see our load demands skyrocket beyond precedent. At the same time that we're actually already having trouble to transition, that's a recipe for extreme reliability issues if we don't stop and really think things through before we jump into this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to PowerGab, your go-to show for all things energy and environmental policy in the state of Colorado. I'm Jake Fogleman, joined by my co-host, Amy Cooke. In this week's episode, we have a special guest joining us, and I'll kick it to you, Amy, to introduce.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this, Jake. We have Travas Deal, who's the CEO of the Colorado Springs Municipal Utility. And we've talked about Travas on the show a number of times because he's really been the first one who was open about his concern about where the state was going on reliability and affordability, but also the impact it would have on his utility, Colorado Springs Municipal Utility. And I'm actually thrilled to introduce Travas because, one, he comes from a utility that I actually have a lot of respect for. They're good actors in the space, unlike some that we have to deal with. These guys, they really do try to do the right thing. And that's Duke Energy. I had a lot of experience with them in North Carolina, and Travas comes from Duke Energy, and it's actually the Gibson Generating Station, which you may not know, but it was the largest coal fired power plant, I think, in the country, if I remember that correctly. Also, he's a veteran. I'm going to let him tell you more about himself and about the Colorado Springs Utility. Travas Deal, CEO of CSU, and not Colorado State University, Colorado Springs Utility. Travas, welcome to the show. We're so thankful that you could make it on today.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys today on what we definitely are considering a very important subject. And thank you guys for what you do to help educate the community as well as the region when it gets into a very complicated subject, which is power and really everything on the regulation side of things. So thank you guys for what you do.
Well, tell us a little bit about you. You were a Marine. Well, once a Marine, always a Marine. So you never say former Marine. I learned that from my father. So you are a retired Marine.
Yes, I spent almost 11 years altogether in the Marine Corps. Got into utilities after that, energy side. Worked at Duke Energy. Definitely did a lot of different jobs there. Love outdoors. Pretty much anything outdoors. I'm a big outdoorsman. So had a recruiter get at home. I had a chance to come out to Colorado Springs Utilities in 2017, and I chose to make the move out here. Since then, I've done several different roles here, Chief Energy Officer, Chief Operations Officer, and I've been the Chief Executive Officer now for a little over 2 years. Great organization, great community, take a lot of pride in supporting this, like I said, this region, especially this community. We've got several military installations here we serve as well. We are a Forest Service utility, and that makes us very special in nature. As a generating Forest Service utility, we're one of the largest in the United States. We serve electric, gas, water, and wastewater. We're actually even installing citywide fibers. So it makes us very diverse, and it sort of helps us, be competitive in nature, for our ratepayers, because we're able to find efficiencies where others may or may not be able to. For example, there's only one of me, and there's 4 services. My executive team, we all cover those 4 services. So, which is really good. And our military partners and our community is very important to us, and making sure that we're helping support national defense, which sort of ties back in, which I love this area. Being a Marine is, I feel like I'm still helping serve our country, making sure our military partners have dependable, reliable power and our other services as they need to support our country.
Well, yeah, and Travis, something else too. Reliable, affordable power is also a national security issue beyond just the military. It is for the total United States. And I think President Trump has made that very clear that it is so important that we have affordable and reliable power. And so with that, I mean, I think that not only just the military, but just in general, we have to have affordable, reliable power. You've been vocal about this. So what is it about what's happening in the state? What are the conversations you have been having? And then answer this question: how many ratepayers do you have?
So we sit on electric side around 260,000 meter customers, and we've got a little less in gas and a little bit less in water. So you have a lot of master meters. So we're the second largest electric provider in the state of Colorado. Behind XL, Piesco, we fall second there. We're the second largest gas distribution company in the state of Colorado, and we fall around third on water and wastewater. So we're a very large, contributor to the electric generation, in the state of Colorado.
And then talk about
And
the conversations you've been having, because you were the first one to be vocal really about it, and we talked about that here on the show.
yeah, so what we started really seeing, we have a 80% carbon reduction that, sort of mandated to us to try to achieve, by the end of 2030. And we really have done everything we can to try to meet that. And we went out and looked at several different options, heavily, renewables, on the solar and the wind side. And we got started getting these bids back in early last year to mid-year. And we're seeing price increases of, minimum 2 to 3 times what we should have seen. Renewables are going up in cost, not down. And the way renewables work, since it is considered intermittent power, you have to build significantly more of it. So I think a lot of people take a look at it and they want to compare a megawatt to megawatt. A megawatt of solar costs X, megawatt of gas X, coal X. The difference is NERC, which is the North American Reliability Commission, does not give you that much credit for it. So you have to overbuild now. So not only is the cost of megawatt hour we're seeing on our contract significantly higher, then you have to overbuild because you're only given around low 20s, for solar. So to get 100 megawatts of delivered power, you have to build 3 times that, in your planning reserve. Then also you got to have batteries to be able to store it because physics are still physics. Take away any political platform that you stand on when it gets at energy, there is only so much that renewables can do. Sun's only available so many hours of the day, wind's only available so many hours, and battery technology has an advanced, and the availability of it is really, you're looking at 100 megawatts 4 hours. And all of us that live in Colorado know you have a lot more than 4 hours of darkness, a lot more than 4 hours. So the physics doesn't let you go to 100% renewables. So what happens then, you have to have another technology. You got to have base load. Whatever that base load looks like, whether it is, our coal fleet, our gas fleet, or even, some of the work we're trying to do to be able to even look at nuclear as a potential clean energy in the future is another one, which the state's moving in that direction, hopefully to allow us to at least account that for clean energy. So what happens when it gets into very simple on the cost, you're overbuilding, what your renewables are, because of what you have to if you're planning reserves. Then on top of that, you have to carry another fleet that doesn't run that often. So now you've got 2 fleets that you're carrying. So it is so simple to me that it's hard for me to understand sometimes why there's so much disbelief around why this cost of transition is so high. You're carrying multiple fleets. You have to, because renewables aren't there all the time. So you have to carry a gas fleet, you have to carry the staffing, the infrastructure, all of these things, and you also have to overbuild on your renewables. The other challenge we have as a municipal utility, when it gets into this transition, is transmission. So our footprint's fairly small. The county of El Paso County is pretty much us. From there, we have some of our co-op partners, of course, that share within this county, and we go up a little bit into Teller County. So for us to put renewables in, we have to bring it in from a large distance away. So that means transmission that we don't actually have right now. We're in the process of going into a market, which is SPP, Southwest Power Pool. We're working on a regional transmission, entity to help with some of these transmission hurdles that we have in the state of Colorado. So we're doing the things that we need to try to look for options outside of our current footprint, but that takes time and it takes a lot of money. So when you get into this transition, those things are really what's adding up to a huge price increase, for our customers. And where I'm at, that's why I'm really big when it gets into market. So for us as a customer, we want to make sure that we provide, like we talked earlier, the most reliable power at the most affordable price, and that is the most environmental friendly. So we definitely have that in there. Once these other two are met, we want to be good stewards, of our environment. But the first two's got to be met. We have to meet those. And that's how we take a look at what that portfolio looks like. And as we start seeing this transition coming in and these costs, I will always choose the best option for my customers. Yes, I grew up in coal country. I grew up running coal plants, other plants. Does that mean I think that I would not transition to something else if it's better? Absolutely. I would look at any option that is good for our ratepayers. So we did. We took a look at all the options. And it still really comes back to that we have to have a fleet of some sort of base load power, which is right now carbon based when it gets into natural gas and coal to make sure our price is there. The other thing too is you got to look at cost as a life cycle. Everything is a life cycle. You get what you pay for. You pay for something and it lasts so many years, and that helps get your rate of return, more profitable over time. When you have arbitrary dates, whether it's 2030, 2040, whatever that is, every utility is different, no different than we are as people. All three of us, right now, you two and myself, we're different backgrounds, different upbringing, different ages. Everything's different about us. Utilities are the same way. So if you can't itemize and utilize your resources for us, it's very simple. The analogy I've told a lot of people that's not in our industry is you're driving a car every day. You got to maintain that car, and you have to pay for that car till Friday. And at Friday, I would need you to park that car, and I need you to buy another car, start driving it on Monday, but you haven't paid off the other car. And that's where we're at with some of our assets. We haven't even really utilized them. So a smart transition is two things to me. Have your infrastructure, have your transmission in place, have everything you need, your interconnects. Be able to look broad out to make sure if you're looking at renewables, you're looking at areas that are accessibility. They're different when it gets into basically the areas of weather patterns are different. You got to have diversity. So have diversity renewables. You got to have transmission. Get your transmission built. Utilize your assets to end of life cycle. That way our ratepayers have maximized the cost that they put into that. Then you transition at that point. But anytime you just pick dates and transition, it's always going to be the most expensive. And then when you get into contract negotiations, the people you're dealing with take advantage of that. They're taking advantage of a mandate, an arbitrary mandate date, and they know that you have to do it. So you're not going to get the best price for your product either. So when you start negotiating these, you're going to really take it on the chin pretty hard. And that's sort of what we're seeing with all these. So we have to transition in a smart way, or we're going to price point out our customers, and we could definitely have impacts to reliability. You got to have resources that can work and work well whenever the time's needed.
If I could just jump in, I love everything you just said. We could do probably 7 different shows on some of the topics you brought up. And in fact, we probably have done 7 different shows on many of those topics. But I do want to pinpoint one thing about the ratepayer impacts. Can you speak to maybe a little bit, what unique pressures does a municipal utility face with trying to accommodate these costs that maybe a investor-owned utility has a little bit more of a luxury in spreading those costs around?
Yeah, two things. The biggest thing is diversity of territory. So, when they build economy of scale projects, they may put large, I'll just use our region, for example. So now you may build large scale wind facilities in Wyoming, in Kansas. They have the transmission infrastructure there that is very broad and it's spread out over a large, 1 million plus customer, rate base. All of these things lets them utilize infrastructure differently, that we have that ability. Two is we're not investor owned. Right now, everything I do is on the backs of my customers, and our customers are already struggling. Everything's up in price right now. And, for them to struggle as they are right now, just with their general utilities cost, and then to add something that is really self-driven. I mean, really right now, our transition is self-driven. It's not a need. It is a want that others have that to transition sooner than later. So that is you're putting on you're asking ratepayers to carry something that is a politically driven, mandate at this point that we can do it in a more timely fashion that is more cost effective for our customers. But we just do not have that economy of scale that other investor-owned utilities or funding streams that they may have.
Yeah. And, speaking of investor and utilities, yeah, the funding streams may be a little bit different, but we've even seen them start to speak up as you have. There was a letter penned by Xcel Energy to the PUC in its clean energy plan proceeding, not so much focused on the cost necessarily, but they were raising real concerns about reliability impacts. They're also facing the same 2030 deadline to decarbonize by 80%. And they're concerned that the PUC is not approving enough gas capacity to make up the shortfall that's going to result from closing, Comanche 3 and the rest of their coal fleet by the end of the decade. And so they're speaking out too, and even the biggest player on the block is not immune from these challenges.
No, and it's also too, it's not even just us saying there's reliability impacts. NERC has also said it, WEC said it, FERC said it. Pretty much every non-political agency at the federal level has brought up extreme concerns about the future of our electric grid and stability of it through some of these fast-paced transitions. So it's not only the IOU saying it, us as municipals saying it, it's also even our federal entities are saying we have a problem here. And especially, as you start going into, making sure that we're supporting national defense as huge advances of AI happens. Everything is happening right now that's all technology based. So now, electricity isn't a luxury. It's a necessity for our way of life, more so than ever. Everything we have depends on this. So we're going to see load increase. We're going to see our load demands skyrocket beyond precedent. At the same time that we're actually already having trouble to transition, that's a recipe for extreme reliability issues if we don't stop and really think things through before we jump into this.
Hey, Travis, you mentioned NERC, FERC. Jake mentioned Excel. You have been vocal. MISO is having problems. PJM, Southwest Power Pool, which you also brought up. What has been, as you have said these things, and now a number of people, and now Excel is saying, and actually, they are very concerned. I mean, if you read, they're obviously diplomatic in that letter, but clearly they recognize they're in the reliability business, and that's number one. You have to provide reliable service, and they're worried. But as you were really the tip of the spear. We also have all of those other entities, organizations that you mentioned. How has that been received, do you think, in the state of Colorado?
Yeah, I think, there's we're working through that. And the thing is, which I've continued to share, with our policymakers, at the state, is the thing is with a municipal entity, we're an open book. So, everything we have is very open in nature. Our bids are open in nature. Everything's open in nature. So we want to continue to be that sort of litmus test and that sort of guiding light to policy in the state of Colorado, because we are truly, truly there for the people. That's it. That's our true north. Everything we do is around doing what's right for our community and for our ratepayers. And we're very open. We're not trying to make a buck. We're not trying to do anything that is, malicious in intent. It's truly that simple. So, we're hoping that the state of Colorado understands that our willingness to be transparent, to be honest, to be open with this, and to really make sure that, we're trying to be the best partners forward. And hopefully, we can try to get to the right outcome at the right pace to meet everybody's sort of initiatives, but we just can't put it on the backs of our ratepayers. We can't put our military partners at risk. The military is very concerned, right now, with some of the transition plans, because they don't like being at the hands of civilians, and they're very much at the hands of us right now when it gets into their military needs as well as their missions. So I take that to heart. So.
Do you foresee any, or maybe you're hearing things, or do you just have a sense that we may see some policy flexibility moving forward as more and more utilities are poking their heads up and saying we've got a problem here?
I don't know. I hope, but I really don't know at this point. We're doing the best we can at this point, educating everybody on this. but there's definitely different beliefs on it. You've got some that are okay with reliability impacts. They're okay with brownouts and
Right.
blackouts to meet an initiative that they feel is important to them, which is an energy transition and a decarbonization. Um, they just don't share the sentiments of my customers. I've never had a customer come to me say I'm okay with 2 hours of brownouts or I'm okay with rolling blackouts. My hospitals don't tell me that. My military doesn't tell me that. The schools don't. So I think that's the thing is, I hope that our policymakers are listening to the broader voice of everybody and not just those that are really pushing for something that they feel strongly about. And I tell everybody I'm a huge outdoorsman. I'm a huge environmentalist. I drink out of our streams. I do all these things. I would not be running a utility that I thought was being detrimental to our environment. I couldn't, that sort of crosses that, and we're not. We're doing a lot of great things, and we are a very environmentally friendly utility. We can do that and still have the right generation mix. So, but I think right now, the state is probably, hearing from two different sides on that. And I just keep saying, use us. We're a municipal utility. We're Our true north is our customers. Our true north is very simple and pure in nature. We have no other alternative motives. So if anybody should be listened to, hopefully it's us.
Travis, you testified in favor of House Bill 1040, which was to include nuclear in the definition of a clean resource for the state of Colorado. Do you foresee nuclear in Colorado Springs Utilities' future?
Yeah, I think, we have to have base load. So I think, there's two things that is that factual is you got to have base load. Nuclear is a carbon-free base load. And if that is our only option, then we have to make sure we have the ability to take a look at it. It's going to be very costly, but the longevity of and the lifespan of nuclear is huge. It's long. Now we're going to have to contend to make sure that our water resources, aren't going to be taxed out, because of nuclear. So there's a lot of things we have to look at, but at least having it as a path forward to be able to investigate is a win for us. So now, once this is finalized, we're going to start really investigating, what our nuclear options are, what that cost is, what that rate of return is, how many megawatts can we get with the availability of water. But the good thing is I can partner with those outside the state once I have transmission, once we get this RTO and these interconnects figured out, then I can partner with those outside the state, maybe where I can have more options of larger scale nuclear and being a joint owner and off taker of that now that the state identifies that as clean energy. So I think those two avenues have to be looked at. Nuclear is a bipartisan technology. So it's one of those that is safer to take a look at because no matter which way the pendulum swings, on the political aspect of things, both parties, see nuclear as a future in our country. So we are definitely going to be taking a look at it at Colorado Springs Utilities.
Yeah, that's a great point about once it's recognized here, even if one doesn't get built in Colorado, you can still, do partnerships with folks outside of the state that are perhaps building these plants, and you can still import that power and, provide that reliability to Colorado. But as we're coming up on time here, Amy, I don't know if you had any last questions or you can do your wrap up of takeaways for our listeners.
Yeah, actually, I've got a bunch of questions, but we're out of time. So there are a couple of things. So first of all, I could quote about everything Travis said. I mean, that could be a takeaway unto itself. But there are a couple of things that stuck out to me. One is that everybody should know that the number one and number two utilities in the state are concerned about reliability. And that should be a red flag to the entire state. Your number one and your number two utility. I didn't realize CSU is number two, but it is. So the number one and the number two utilities have huge issues about reliability based on the trajectory that the state is on. So that's the first takeaway. And two, I mean, I wrote down a number of things. I've got a sheet of paper that's full of stuff, but I loved this. It's so simple. If you have multiple fleets, it's going to cost money. So I think, take away those two things. One and two have reliability issues. And then the number two takeaway would be, it's so simple. You have to build multiple fleets. Therefore, it's going to cost you more money. And 3, until we get this figured out, make sure you have a generator so you're firming your own home, your own grid.
Yeah, great advice as always. Travis, we want to thank you again for joining us. We appreciate you coming to share your experience at CSU and talk about why you've been speaking out. But that does it for us on another episode of PowerGab. Folks like what they saw here, they can head over to powergab.org to check out our entire back catalog. We produce new episodes every single week. We're also available wherever you get your audio shows, whether that's Spotify or Apple. And if you want to reach out to us to suggest future show topics or great guests like Travis that you'd like to see us interview, you can send those to info@powergab.org. But until next week, we'll see you.